Now, another big reason why design thinking has become very prominent lately is because companies are really not so much B2B versus B2C. So, business to business versus business to consumer is now a very false classification. For instance, what would you call Volvo, the bus company? Is Volvo a B2B company or a B2C company? What do you think? I reckon Volvo is equally B2C company, a business to consumer company. Couple of years back, I was at a Volvo factory. So we have this big Volvo factory in Bangalore, outskirts of Bangalore, and I saw this entire Volvo getting done. So they take 2.5 days to make a full Volvo from scratch to the Volvo that goes out, and then they just send this Volvo out with the driver. No checking that is done. The Volvo goes out of the driver, and I was totally surprised to see that. And these were KSRTC drivers. So what happens is KSRTC is our local state transport department, which is using Volvo extensively. In fact, one of the biggest buyers of Volvo is Bangalore government, and each Volvo is close to 2 CR. So they take a 2 CR bus out, completely painted to their perfection. Now, when I'm sitting in that Volvo bus, don't you think that the Volvo as an organization has to be really careful about the consumer who is sitting in the bus and not so much the buyer alone? Now, if Volvo discounts the consumer altogether, then I don't think that the government would be interested in buying a Volvo. They might switch to something like an Ashok Leyland or something in between the Ashok Leyland and Tata's and a Volvo. But the reason Volvo has remained so steadfast in the Indian market, which is very, very price conscious, is because they have always thought about the consumer, thought about the seating comfort, the recline, the position of the seat belts, the size of the window, the floor clearance, the acceleration, deceleration, the TV unit, additional fans, the music system, the storage space, under seat storage, suspension, all of that are taken into consideration, keeping in mind not just the buyer but the user. Now, I took the extreme example of Volvo is to drive home 2 points. The first and the salient point is that India is a market of contrast, where you see companies like General Motors and Ford Motors leaving India, declaring that India is not a market for them. In the very same year, we had Kia Motors and MG coming back to India, you see. So Kia entered India the day Ford left India. Now, how is it possible that for the same Indian market, two companies in the same industry have a completely contrasting opinion? How is that possible? Which means that the strategy has to be to really look at the end consumer and not be product focused. Because many times organizations, especially the Western Hemisphere organizations, are so obsessed with the product that they want the consumer to change their habits to suit the product and not to modify the product to suit the consumer habit. Just to give you a very simple example of Ford. If you have ever driven a Ford car, the thing that you will recognize is that in the Ford car, the indicator is on the left side of the steering column. You see, usually in any Indian car, you would see the indicator is always on the right side of the steering column. On the left side of the steering column, the lever is for the wiper. But in the Ford, it's exact opposite. And why is it opposite? The reason it is opposite is because the 4 steering columns are made for the left-hand wheel drive. So in India, we have the right-hand wheel drive. So in a right-hand wheel drive, such as the Maruti or the Hyundai, the location of the indicator and the wiper is to suit the consumer, because typically your left hand is on the gearbox. So you have the right hand, you can flick the wiper, the indicator rather. But in the Ford, they were so steadfast with their product that they wanted to change the consumer's habits, and it didn't happen because the consumer has a choice. Why would consumer want to? And look at Kia. The reason why Kia Motor has been successful in India, which is a South Korean chaebol, is that they have really studied a car with so many features. And I remember distinctly, very clearly, that when I was buying my car, I first went to Maruti Suzuki, and I wanted a sunroof car where the sunroof can go back. So I asked the Brezza, and they said, no sir, we can't have sunroof. So I asked them, why can't you have sunroof? And they said, sir, it's a safety reason, because if the car topples and if we don't have a solid roof, then it's hazardous for the passengers. And I said, yeah, makes sense. I think it's good that you are thinking about safety. But believe me, the moment Kia Motor came with a sunroof, the next version of Maruti Brezza had a sunroof. Now, what happened to safety? You see, that is what I mean by companies becoming B2C. what is happening now is that the consumers are flushed with choices. And as an organization, I need to be really, really close to the consumer and understand, and not just understand, anticipate the needs of the consumer. And that's one very big reason that why India has become a hub for SUVs. And I keep wondering that why in a country like India, where we have hardly parking space, driving space on the roads, why more people are trading for a large SUV or a compact SUV as compared to a small hatchback. In a city like Bangalore or in a country like India, hatchback makes more sense because it's compact. You can park it easily, you can navigate it easily, and a juggernaut, it doesn't make more sense. But then the choice is exactly the opposite. And the reason why people prefer a bigger car is because it's, apart from being a status symbol, it also gives them a greater protection from the elements. It gives them a greater clearance from the ground, and it offers a more comfortable ride when they are in traffic for longish amount of time. That is about thinking like a consumer. Okay? So, because companies have to increasingly think like a consumer and be the consumer, it is very critical that you have to start behaving like a B2C company. And I would advocate that why B2C? You can actually be a B2H company. All companies are B2H. And what is H? Human. Remember this thing, that whether you're making a machine or a car or a service, anything that you're doing, remember that at the end of the line there is a human being. And if that human being is not loving your contraption, is not loving your product or service, there is no chance that she is advocating for it or willing. So, think about the human who is using your product and not just the people who are buying your product. And that is where design thinking becomes even more prominent. Thank you.